Why spermatorrhea progresses if ignored? Most men think that spermatorrhea becomes serious only when symptoms get worse. But what if the real change happens much earlier, when nothing feels serious at all? To understand how spermatorrhea progresses, we first need to know what quietly shifts inside when it is ignored. How internal balance gradually shifts when spermatorrhea is ignored. Spermatorrhea doesn't begin as something obvious. It doesn't start with pain. It doesn't start with fear. It begins quietly as a shift in internal balance. In a stable system, the sexual organs have a clear resting state. When there is no real sexual need, they remain calm. They hold semen quietly and deeply. Nothing feels strained or active. When spermatorrhea starts developing, this resting balance slowly weakens. The organs do not become damaged. Nothing breaks. Nothing suddenly fails. They simply stop being fully calm. They remain slightly active even when they should be completely still. In the beginning, the signs are subtle. Occasional thin or watery semen, mild leakage after urination, rare nightfall, a vague sense that something feels different. Because nothing feels serious, this phase is usually ignored. But internally, an important change has already begun. The nervous system starts operating in a more alert and reactive mode. Sensitivity rises slowly. The system begins reacting to things that previously had no effect. Small sexual thoughts, mild imagination, brief stimulation. This does not mean stronger desire. It means lower tolerance. As sensitivity stays high, the semen holding system begins to weaken. Retention is not force, it's coordination. And coordination quietly weakens when the system never fully rests. This is how the foundation of spermatorrhea settles in, without pain, without urgency, without alarms. How semen quality and retention change over time if spermatorrhea is ignored. As internal sensitivity remains elevated and semen retention continues to weaken, semen quality begins to change. Semen quality always reflects internal order. When the system is calm and balanced, semen forms steadily. It is dense, cohesive, and easy to contain. When the system is disturbed, semen forms under instability. It becomes thinner, less cohesive, and more fluid. In earlier stages, this appears as a few drops before urination, a few drops after urination, visible leakage that can be noticed. But as spermatorrhea progresses, something more confusing happens. Semen becomes so thin that it no longer appears as drops. It begins to behave like liquid. At this stage, semen does not leak around urination. It leaks with urination. Because it is extremely thin, it blends into the urine stream. There is no obvious discharge, nothing visible to point to. Most men do not realize what has happened. They only feel it afterward. especially after the first urination in the morning, right after getting up from bed. Many describe emptiness in the back core, weakness in the lower spine, a drained or hollow sensation, loss of internal fullness. Earlier, leakage was visible. Now it is silent. The system is no longer leaking in drops. It is draining quietly. This is often the point where confusion deepens because loss is felt without being seen. This represents a deeply settled stage of spermatorrhea. How nervous exhaustion and mental effects take over if spermatorrhea is ignored. When spermatorrhea continues for a long time without correction, the nervous system begins to tire. Constant alertness creates exhaustion. The body never fully rests. At this stage, men may notice poor or shallow sleep, mental fog, irritability, reduced motivation. Sexual response becomes unpredictable. Sometimes there is brief, weak arousal from minor stimulation. Other times there is little or no response at all. This inconsistency creates confusion, and confusion creates fear. Gradually, the mind becomes involved. Men begin monitoring themselves, watching urination, noticing every sensation, interpreting every internal feeling. This hypertension increases sensitivity even more. Fear feeds the system reacts more, the loop tightens. At this point, spermatorrhea is no longer only physical, it begins affecting confidence, self trust, relationships, future thinking. But even here, nothing is broken. The system has simply adapted to long term imbalance. Ignoring spermatorrhea doesn't make it dangerous, it makes it settled. And anything that settles deeply requires patience and structure to unwind. Why medical tests appear as normal even as spermatorrhea progresses? One of the most confusing parts of spermatorrhea is that even symptoms progress, medical tests often come back normal. This creates doubt. Men begin questioning themselves. They wonder if the problem exists or if it's all in their head. This confusion exists because spermatorrhea is not primarily a structural disease, it's a functional imbalance. Most medical tests are designed to detect infections, organ damage, hormonal collapse, visible pathology. Spermatorrhea, especially when ignored over time, does not usually begin with this. The organs are not damaged. Hormones may remain within ranges. Blood reports may appear acceptable. What has changed is how the system behaves. Sensitivity has increased. Semen retention coordination has weakened. The nervous system stays alert instead of calm. These are functional changes, not structural injuries. This is why tests can look normal while the man feels progressively emptier, weaker, and drained. This gap between reports and experience often increases psychological stress. Men think, if tests are normal, why do I feel like this? This doubt increases monitoring. Monitoring increases sensitivity, and sensitivity tightens the cycle. These reports do not mean nothing is happening. They mean nothing is broken. The system has adapted, not collapsed. And a system that has adapted can also be re-educated and stabilized. If you would like to explore this topic in more depth, I have prepared a Spermatorrhea free PDF guide. It covers key symptoms, root causes, and simple natural methods to help you manage the condition effectively. You can download it right now using the link in the description below.